Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call this special meeting to order. This is September the 24th. If we could have the clerk of the board do a roll call for those on the telephone, please.
Supervisor Johnson?
Here.
Supervisor Gould?
Here.
And Supervisor Watson? No Supervisor Watson. We have Supervisor Angus and Chairman Bishop in person.
Okay, thank you very much. We do have a quorum. First item on the regular agenda would be a discussion of possible action for an update from the County Public Health Director to the Board of Supervisors regarding recent issues, actions, events, and county responses regarding COVID-19. Be updates, and we'll take any necessary actions based upon these updates. So we have our Public Health Director, Ms. Denise Burley, at the podium, and I'll turn the floor over to you, Denise.
Wonderful. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'll go through the numbers first. We've had 3,825 cases so far in our county. 569 of those individuals have been hospitalized at some point during their illness. We've had 212 deaths, and 3,069 have recovered as of yesterday. I do have a new number, though, for that. We've actually closed out 3,281 cases. Of that, 3,825 for an 85% completion rate. So that's just an updated number from yesterday.
Thank you.
Average age of cases is 47.8. Average age for deaths is 76.2. And I think that's what we've got for our numbers right at this moment. Looking at the hospital capacity report, I didn't know if anybody had any particular questions on that. I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Any questions? Looks like we don't have questions, Denise.
Okay, all right. So I wanted you to be aware I reviewed the business benchmarks this morning. We're still in the moderate category, although we're still making progress, I believe. We're still in the green for 2. And looking at the cases per 100,000 individuals, we continue to be more in the moderate range. So that's not a great sign. I mean, I'm certain we'd like to move into that minimal category, but at least we're not climbing up too much. We had one real change in that, which was the percent positivity from one week to another went from 1.2 to 2.6, but still we're still in that good range, in that minimal range for that category. Good. Question, Supervisor Angus?
Supervisor Angus.
So to be clear, it says Thursday and the numbers are updated, but I thought that the numbers for business decisions are made every other Thursday.
They're made every Thursday. Every Thursday, that data is updated by the Arizona Department of Health Services at 9 o'clock in the morning. Same with the schools. They're pulling from the same data sources.
Right.
And that information is updated at 9 o'clock, so their benchmarks and metrics are updated at that time also.
But it's still from 2 weeks ago.
That's correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And so
there's that lag time.
to recap, the businesses that cannot open are bars.
Everything else can open, but
Just
at
bars.
reduced capacity.
Okay, even though bars are open most everywhere else, we still can't open. And if this keeps going, I think, I'm not bringing it up now for any other reason, just as sort of a heads up to the rest of the board, is I think we're going to have to talk about helping these businesses. If they're being pointed out and they're the only ones, it seems a bit discriminatory to me, but it is what it is, and these businesses are not going to make it. So if by next week they can't open, I think we're going to have to talk more about things that we can do to help.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
But schools can open. Schools are opening.
Correct. I looked at the benchmarks for schools for Mojave County, and we've met all the benchmarks for the schools based on this morning's report.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Certainly. Any questions on business benchmarks or schools?
Any questions from the board?
Okay, all right. I believe there were 2 questions I wanted to follow up with. Supervisor Gould had a question that he emailed me related to the number of people that stated retired as their occupation. And Supervisor Gould, I wanted to make sure you knew we were still following up with that question. So I will have something to you as soon as possible. And,
Thank you.
Certainly. And then Supervisor Johnson, you had asked about deaths by community, correct? And not service area? Is that where you were, is that your question, whether or not we can do that?
Yes, if we can do that now instead of by the hot.
Okay. So what we would be looking at in going down that road is we could do deaths by community instead of service area. And we can do this on the fact sheet and on the web page. And what we would do is if there were fewer than 10 deaths, we would not report it as such. We would report deaths in a community over, so 11 and above, basically. So we'll work with the data team on getting that completed and updated. Does that work for you, Supervisor Johnson?
I guess so. We can't do just less than 10 in those areas?
Let me talk with them and see what we can do, okay?
Sure.
Okay. We'll make sure we follow up on that.
Denise, may I ask a question since we're talking about reporting? Recently, I had a member of the public contact me and ask if we might consider a shift in reporting to cases by date of diagnosis and or death. Can you explain what the benefit to the public of such a change might be?
Sure. And actually, the data team has proposed changing the timeline for cases and deaths to that date of diagnosis instead of the date of the report. And we were going to bring that forward as a proposition moving ahead, and we would like to do so on Monday, if that would work for you. A couple of benefits, just right off the cuff, is this is a better way to see when COVID was circulating in the community, if it's based on the diagnosis date. And the other factor is that the state benchmarks are based on diagnosis dates and not our reporting date. So it aligns more closely with the state benchmarks.
Good. That was going to be my next question. And I think now that the numbers are going down, this is more of a concern to the general public, as what they're experiencing right now. So thank you, and I look forward to that discussion on Monday.
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Certainly. And I didn't have any other specific updates to provide, but I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board.
Does the board have any questions?
I have a question here.
Supervisor Gould?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Denise, in our contact tracing, have we seen any cases of a child contracting the COVID-19 virus and then infecting their family?
I'll need to follow up on that for you, Supervisor Gould, okay? Just to make sure I get complete information. So you're looking for a child that's contracted it and then basically infected their family, is that correct?
Correct, ma'am.
Okay, all right. We'll follow up on that with our contact tracing team and investigation team.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Hey, Supervisor Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know what age Supervisor Gould was talking about, but I know that there was a boy that was 16. The family was at high risk, so they stayed home and had the boy go out and do all the copies and everything, and he contacted it and passed it on to the family, but he was 16.
Okay.
The next question for the director is, do we have any idea when the senior centers might open?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? You kind of broke up right in the middle there, sorry.
Do we have any idea when the senior centers might reopen?
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. If you could hang on just one moment, I'd like to have Tiara Morrison, who oversees that particular program, speak to that. So she's in the audience right now.
Senior centers.
Greetings, Madam Chair, members of the board. Supervisor Johnson, could you repeat your question one more time for me, please?
Do we have any idea when the senior centers might reopen?
So we have developed a plan to figure out when would be the best date to reopen. We don't have an exact date right now, but I have developed a plan to make sure that when we do choose to open, that we are following all the CDC guidelines. But we're looking to reopen soon.
All right, thank you. Also, for the director, do you have any concerns with the higher number of cases coming in this week?
Yes, Supervisor Johnson, I do. I think we can attribute some of those to the holiday weekend and looking at the timing. And then I do know that there's a bit of COVID fatigue going on, and so there may be some of the cases related to just sort of people being tired, basically, of the whole system and the issue, and not being quite as careful or precautionary in their steps. So.
All right, thank you, Director, Madam Chair. That's all I have.
Certainly.
Supervisor Angus.
So since Supervisor Johnson brought that up about the cases, which it's all relative, right? From last month when we had over 100 to now having 16 instead of having 2.
Sure.
But if you really look at where those cases are, which we get to do, they're really all over the county, which is a huge county. Our county is as big as some states. Mm-hmm. So when you look at it that way, because there was a time, I'd say like 80% came from Bullhead City, and that was troubling because you can say, well, that's a hot spot. But I think that it's a positive feature that they really are just kind of spread out. And not just in one place.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, we would be more concerned if they were centralized in a specific community. And in this case, the fact that they are spread out does show that there's just more spread within the communities. And in my opinion, that just means we need to keep up with those preventive steps. Right. So.
We've been hearing a lot of stuff in the news about the deaths and were they with comorbidities and were they, and that's not a discussion at this level. I understand, but I got a question where they want to know if they could get information at our county level of the causes of death. I think I know the answer, but I want them to hear it from you. When we get the cause of death, it's COVID. We don't get all the background of all the patient's problems, right?
Well, I do believe we do get more information than that. But let me follow up and make sure that I am giving you an accurate answer there, a correct answer, and then I will get back specifically, okay?
Because when we get that, it will say the patient died. It was a COVID death. It doesn't say with COVID, it says a COVID death. And I think that is what the whole country is debating now. Mm-hmm. Is it, with people dying who were very sick and maybe dying anyway and they happen to have it? And
sure.
So that's, I think, what the questions are. And I really wasn't aware that you get that deep of information, so that's interesting.
Yes,
I like that, and I thought it was interesting that over all these meetings we've been having, still the average age of death has pretty much stayed the same.
It has, yes, yeah. I mean, it's varied some. I believe when we saw our first few deaths, we were certainly up in the 80s.
Yeah, but then
it's
78. It's stayed now. It's been 76 point something for quite a while.
Right. And I will make sure that I get back with you on whether or not we do get more detail on cause of death, and then we can talk more about what you're looking for.
Thanks.
Okay, certainly.
Okay, Denise, I'd like to switch gears a little bit. President Trump held a news conference and provided an update on the administration's COVID-19 response and the vaccine development, as well as the nation's economic recovery. And in that, understand Johnson & Johnson are reaching their final stage of clinical trials here in the United States, and they're talking about more CARES Act funding in the amount of $200 million for all 50 states. So have you had any communications with the CDC about these clinical trials and when that might come to Arizona, specifically to Mojave County? and how that might go looking forward?
Certainly. We have not had specific conversations with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Those are being held and conducted with the Arizona Department of Health Services. As far as our work on vaccine, we are part of a task force. We have a representative participating on a task force with the Arizona Department of Health Services to talk about when that vaccine is available, how will that be distributed, and how do we onboard additional providers and hospitals to assist with the vaccination process. And so we can provide an update for you at some point here in the near future, if you'd like, on where we are in that process.
Yes, I would like that very much. Any other questions? County Manager, do you have anything?
Madam Chair, I do not. Thank you for asking.
Okay. All right, Denise.
That's all I have.
Then we will go on to the next agenda item, number 2. This will be a discussion of possible action to approve reclassifying the vacant account specialist class code 5020, position number 1220, pay range 14 as a budget and grants supervisor, pay range 21 with no impact to the general fund. So is there any... is that you, Supervisor Gold?
Gold.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm just curious, since this is a vacant position, what the urgency is to put it on a special meeting.
Supervisor Gould, if I understood correctly, it's since the position is an essential position in our department, and it's been vacant since about April, I believe. And it's important that we fill it, and we've been really struggling to fill this particular position. And we took a different approach to try to do this, and HR did help us with the reclassification process to ensure that the position itself met the roles and responsibilities. And that's where they determined that it needed to be a different classification.
So the sense of urgency is to fill the position?
It is, but it's been vacant for some time, and as a result, we have the person who retired from that position helping us for the maximum 19 hours a week that someone can help as part of their retirement or while they're in retirement. And then the assistant director has also had to fill in a number of times to assist with the other half of those responsibilities, and it would be helpful if she didn't have those to worry about.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Okay, and Supervisor Gold, just so you know, this was brought to my attention, and it was determined to be critical at this point because we have other people filling in on this position, and it's an important position for the health department. So I went ahead and approved it to be placed on the special meeting.
Thank you, ma'am.
So if there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve reclassifying the vacant account specialist class code 5020, position number 1220, pay range 14 as a budget and grant supervisor.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? We do have a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Do you have anything further before I close the meeting? Okay, we're adjourned.
Thank you.